Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
of the United States of America to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have the roll call, please.
Gary Cunningham. Here. Nathan Long.
Here.
Doug Bryson.
Here.
Deanna Hinton. Here. Steve Griffiths. Here. Riley Hoagland.
Here.
And Bruce Robinson.
Here. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
There are none.
Thank you. And the minutes, there were some fixes in the minutes.
Right, there are just a few typos that were found. These are all on page 4, and one of those is in the second full paragraph where the word meet is written as met, and then a little further down a word typed as improvement should be improve, and then the final correction is to spell Commissioner Griffith's name correctly with an S on the end. And that's it.
We have a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Public comments on non-agenda items or matters not involving a public hearing. I don't see any interest in that. And final orders and resolutions, we have none scheduled. All right. It's now 6:02 p.m. Our next agenda item will be deliberation on file PUD 2014-04, the preliminary master plan for Olivia Beach Planned Unit Development Phase 3. This is a proposal for a residential PUD with 47 lots and several common area tracts. The proposed development is on the east side of Southwest Coast Avenue and south side of Southwest Bard Road in the Nelscott neighborhood. The public hearing for this matter was held on June 2nd, 2015. The hearing was closed on June 2nd, and the record was held open to accept written testimony until 5 p.m. on June 9th. Deliberations on this matter were continued to tonight's meeting. In this meeting's electronic packet, commissioners were provided with all information in the record, including application materials, the staff report and exhibits, and any written testimony submitted. Minutes from the June 2nd hearing are also in the packet. Does any member of the Commission wish to declare an ex parte communication, conflict of interest, or bias in this matter? None? At this time, I will open the discussion for...
Chairman,
Sure.
I didn't have a chance to...
All right. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I was absent for the last meeting, but I did review all information in the record, and I did review and watch the last meeting.
Thank you.
Same for me. I was absent, but I reviewed everything.
Thank you. Does the city attorney or staff have... Yeah, commissioners may consult with city staff and the city attorney, but do not ask for new evidence. Does the city attorney or staff have any comments concerning legal issues raised during these proceedings, instructions on the applicable law, or legal advice concerning the application of the law to the evidence in the record?
No, we don't.
All right. This matter then is returned to the table for deliberations and a tentative decision. Gentlemen, deliberate.
You too.
I'll just mention I do have the PowerPoint from last time up, so if you want to refer to that, I can move it around and to a particular slide. I'll just mention that since the last meeting, you did get the applicant's response to comments, and did you all get that?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Asked the city attorney to check up on one thing for me, and I believe he's doing that.
He's on his way down.
Okay. Ownership of easement by there's a reference to it being so by reference it says
in your materials for tonight's meeting, there should be a copy of the easement there.
saw the reference saying that this person had actually sold it to the bank and then banks to deal with, but I didn't actually see the sales document saying that the easement was sold.
The easement runs with the land, and the applicant owns the land. I don't know if they bought it from the bank or what, but
I guess my question is because this applicant is instead of
it's more than just a utility easement, though, the easement we're talking about. Yeah, so it's also so access is for people and vehicles to be able to use it.
You're talking about the recitals that are set forth in the document, and the 214 of 221. And in this land use hearing, the standard would be a preponderance of the evidence. Make a decision based upon whether or not you think the applicant has demonstrated by preponderance of the evidence that the standards are met. You weigh the evidence. You have a copy of a recorded document here with recitals referring to document numbers in the recording document. I think you could take this as substantial competent evidence to demonstrate what it asserts, that there is in fact been those conveyances as reflected in the recital. Granted, you know, we could have, or the applicant could have submitted every document number that's referenced in this document as backup to this document, but I think staff would feel comfortable with the document stands on its own and is reliable. It's a copy of a recorded document.
owners of the
Yes, and testified. I understand.
You're good with that?
Well, one concern I sort of had was all the vacant lots that Lincoln City already has, and we're adding more to it. I mean, the glutton of lots that are in this city now, what's it going to do for that? Driving costs down more and everything, or it's a little concern I have with that.
I believe he said it depended on if he was going to be granted VR or not. Somebody asked, is it contingent on VR? And he said it might be. So have that another 47 units VR.
I guess I'd caution that the application before you tonight is the application before you tonight. You do not have a VR before you, nor do you have an annexation. An annexation, as you recall, has criteria like is the public interest would be furthered, and considerations like the glut of lots that are available for residential development. They are relevant criteria for that kind of a decision. This is not that kind of a decision. This is a planned unit development master plan. And so we're strictly talking about applying 1752, right section, 1752, to this application.
The criteria are listed in and we went through those last time. So the criteria are in bold in your staff report.
No, I didn't say. I may have said it only in my head. I feel very well, so if I didn't say that,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Question
Please.
about process. Do we vote on whether to move this forward? I mean, yes. Do we then discuss the conditions, or should we do that prior to the vote?
I think we should discuss the conditions now.
I believe that the manner of approval is that you approve it with conditions or you approve it without conditions, and I think if you want to impose conditions, you discuss it before the vote.
What conditions do you have in mind, sir?
Well, I was just thinking the staff had several. We should look at those and see, or if we want to add any more, or that was on page.
Exhibit A. Fortunately, I don't see page numbers.
Page 21.
Pardon me?
21.
21, okay.
When I read these earlier, nothing jumped out at me as the one condition that came up was, and this was also the testimony, was the 3-year PUD, the expiry of the PUD in 3 years versus 2 years. The appellant asked for 3, but we have some testimony that talks about the slow, sluggish nature of this project. Would we like to add a 2-year, a change to a 2-year expiry to speed the thing along?
I would stick with 3.
Any other thoughts on that?
I agree with 3. I'm not sure houses are moving that quickly.
Well, if I might interject, the final master plan would come after the subdivision and after the installation of all the improvements, which they intend to do right away from previous testimony. So then the final master plan allows them to sell lots. Am I right?
Close to right.
Okay.
The preliminary master plan that you're considering now basically approves the development, the next step for them normally it would be to file the final master plan and the subdivision plat at the same time for your approval. Once the subdivision plat's approved, then they can sell lots. And the subdivision plat has to be consistent with the final master plan.
Deanna?
All right. I was not here at our last meeting, so I submitted some written comments based on my review of all the documents. And the design team actually provided a lot of feedback in their response. And I realize, I must say, that my comments about construction and how to do the good neighbor type agreement so they can work alongside of their residential neighbors is a little premature because we're not there yet. But I did kind of want to give a heads up to how some of the comments that we received in testimony could be handled, and the sooner some ideas are put in place, I think the better for the project and for the neighbors. And I also commented on the CC&Rs, which I'm hoping that we all kind of move towards, and that's providing tsunami and earthquake or preparedness information, or how to get out of harm's way, like with a tsunami map that it's posted, and they didn't want to change their CC&Rs to include that because it didn't fall within what they believe CC&Rs can stand for, but I'm going to keep requesting that because I think it's only good for the folks that will use those houses when they're built. And the other items that I listed was just the idea of if an alleyway is large enough for access, and I'm just thinking of safety first, and it seems like they address that there seems to be enough room for cars to pass each other and to park, and that one lane is actually they're going to now post no parking signs along that one newer road, which is an improvement. And one of my other ideas is about the trees. There are Sitka spruce, Doug fir, and hemlock, and those are the natural selection trees of the area. And I understand that they would have to remove quite a few of them in order to build, because you can't damage the roots and have the trees survive. But my request is just that we try and retain as much as we can of the existing vegetation, natural vegetation. And another comment I had was about stormwater management, and they did a good job, in my opinion, of providing native vegetation, which is one of the best ways to manage stormwater. And so my question to them was, would they be able to do some on-site stormwater management versus piping it and then piping it to a larger pipe? And could there be some way for the infiltration to happen on-site as much as possible? And in fact, they are looking at swales, so that's an improvement. I made a suggestion about night sky lighting, and what I mean by that is just downward shining street lights, and they mentioned that they won't be putting in street lights unless the city makes them, and which is nice, except it missed my point. And I'm just suggesting that when they put exterior lights on their house, that they just be aware that and keep the lights from, keep them non-trespassing and keep the glare down. And then the other comment I made is about the traffic study, and I guess maybe this is even a question to the city. The traffic study that they're doing, the standard traffic study, which I'm assuming is like the peak hours Monday through Friday, morning and evening type of traffic, which in fact is not necessarily the traffic in Lincoln City. We have our peak hours. Now, this is my opinion. I'm not a traffic engineer, and I'm not a rocket scientist, but common sense could prevail here. But my suggestion is that identify what the traffic patterns are, and my non-scientist view of things would be that it would probably be Friday evenings, weekends, holidays, and Sundays at 11 a.m. So those were my suggestions.
And as we're in the deliberating at some proposed conditions, do any of those rise to the level of a proposed condition that you would like to deliberate?
Thank you. I would say the traffic study, the night sky lighting, the stormwater, which I think they're already including, and they seem to have been taking care of, I'm hoping, of the parking as an ongoing big issue around here.
So could you put a condition, words around a condition, a proposed condition?
Mr. Chair, I might be able to help a little bit on traffic-wise. Is maybe a condition of no construction work on weekends or holidays. That is a tight area for a lot of PRDs are in there, and there is a lot of traffic in those roads. That could become a safety issue, especially towards the Bard Road area.
Mr. Townsend had a comment on that last meeting. Was that, or was it Mr. Abicello about our legal standing to impose conditions on days of work?
Talked about you don't have the authority to change the provisions of the noise ordinance, but in terms of Chapter 1752, you have specific authority. So that I can pull it up on the code here if you want to wait a minute, but you have specific authority to impose conditions relative to construction activity. I don't know the subsection, but I can look it up. So hours of construction activity would be appropriate. There is an exemption in the noise ordinance for construction activity to the decibel level specifications, but I believe that only operates Monday. Yeah, I can look that up.
I believe we also had testimony from one of the residents about having traffic on or construction on weekends and holidays were a problem.
So the point I was trying to make is that there is a exemption. What you can't do is change the code. So there is an exemption in the noise ordinance as construction activity is under an exemption 040, and it's by industrial, agricultural, or construction activities during the hours of 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on the same day. Now, there is no exemption, there is no reference there to excluding weekends and legal holidays. So, for example, blasting activities in the same ordinance excludes weekends and holidays from the exemption. So construction activities would not violate the noise ordinance even on a day or a weekend. Okay, now, that said, still have specific authority under 1752 to impose conditions construction activity. Said was, you can't change the noise ordinance, but you have authority to limit construction activities.
Which would be, it's a construction activity, no construction activity on weekends or holidays.
They have a little friendly amendment, except for housekeeping. I mean, I think a lot of times they go in at the end of the week, maybe on Saturday, just to straighten things
Clean up.
out. And for safety reasons, I would think that that would be okay.
I don't know. Then we're saying, well, for housekeeping, or maybe for this person to go in, but these people can't. I think we need to stick with it's either all or nothing for that.
Talking construction.
Correct. Well, that's construction cleanup is what she's referring to. Somebody that goes in and picks up the small pieces and stuff and cleans up the lot. Yeah, that's what
I think it,
referring to.
make it clean. You're right. So propose some wording. Weekdays only?
Let's see. Construction shall be Monday through Friday.
Holidays accepted?
Weekends or holidays.
I would suggest these holidays: New Year's Day, Memorial Day, Labor Day, Thanksgiving Day, Christmas Day.
How about federal? Any federal holidays?
Let me just say the days that they can't do it. Legal holidays on Saturday and Sunday.
There you go.
Anybody oppose that idea?
But they can do it on the 5th Sunday of the month, though.
When applicable.
Would that, okay.
They bring
But they get
cookies.
started by then. What about the hours of work?
Well,
Well, we
7 a.m. to 7
7
a.m.
7 to 7, so that's a noise ordinance there.
All right.
I think part of the tree thing is that they were saying that the tree engineer, I forget what they call the arborist, that they would have to take them all down.
Let's
Because if they removed some,
finish with the...
that would, we're going to,
Yeah,
okay.
let's finish it. But, no, I definitely want to have that. Are we unanimous about that, or are there any objections to that idea? All right, sorry. Now let's talk about trees.
Okay. Is there a way that we could say, I mean, it's nice to say, save as many as you can, but we have a count of how many trees they are. Can we require them to replace a percentage of the trees in the 48 lots or whatever? 47 lots.
They can remove trees for installation of the infrastructure. But they cannot remove trees from individual building lots until they have a building permit. So if you're going to consider that, you have to consider those areas outside the building permit, or the building lots, I guess, because we don't know how many will be retained, or at least word it so that, retained trees would contribute to your total or something like that, I guess. That might be an incentive.
This is on a lot-by-lot basis as it goes through, depending on what tree per lot, then. It's not the
The
whole.
building lots, yes. But when they put in the streets, and do preliminary grading for that and utilities, then, they have to remove some trees for that.
The only trees we're talking about are those in that space.
Or the infrastructure, so it'd be the
Infrastructure
streets,
space.
the
Streets, the pipes,
The easements.
easements, sewers, gutters. And we heard last meeting that they have to cut back probably 20 feet from
all of that.
those spaces because of the danger of falling trees once you've destroyed the root system.
So in the infrastructure, can we impose a percentage of replanting? I mean, where would you even apply it to? Because now you have the lots, and you're not going to address the lots until there's a building permit. So now you have these trees that have been removed with, well, we don't know if we're going to put them.
They did talk about planting trees along the street frontages,
I think they
but that would be in the street right away.
planting trees along Bard Avenue, for example. The
Or
front-
coast.
Yeah, but they did say, as you, they want to stick to natural vegetation. Would encourage that they do that, particularly because they border right up next to an open space that has spruce, hemlock, Douglas fir. So if they are planting trees in areas after it's cleared, I think we should encourage that they be planted to spruce, hemlock, and other trees that echo what's there in the open space and also echo what's in phases 1 and 2.
Basically blending in with the surrounding area.
Right. No maple trees.
No maple trees.
How about alders?
No alders.
Trees.
I'm serious about the alders because, sometimes evergreens are not appropriate in some locations along street frontages. Sometimes they are.
We'll prevent evergreens to come in once they're planted.
Okay.
Russian olive, how do you feel about it?
Let's stick with the native brand species.
Is there any, do you have a proposal for how to state your
Not yet.
tree condition?
I think, actually, because they've, in the shrubbery and the vegetation that they've listed, they've said native species, which we don't know what they are, but if they're native to the area, then that can't be bad, I would think. I would just, perhaps we should add native species for the trees as well, and perhaps replace what is there currently, or make suggestions of what they would substitute instead.
Chairman,
Sir.
just in terms of your authority, so the code is generous with regard to impose, specifically with construction in a manner that does not create this is what you have as submitted or with addition of conditions in order to assure the mitigation of open-ended. It's that removal of areas of the constructed shortly of those areas in which construction will occur, so as staff for the infrastructure, not wholesale clear the whole until the lot, and if it's open burning, which I restrictions on construction track out, which enough says restrictions on construction noise, which seems to conflict. Restrictions on construction traffic. So, in order to avoid or mitigate negative impact. Trees or construction impacts or having them not entirely appropriate.
Thank you. What he said.
Somebody's mic isn't.
You can't hear this? Down.
Too loud? I don't speak thumb.
Okay, is this better?
I heard you being too loud.
No, I don't think.
We have a request that you all speak into your mics better. These are supposed to pick up from a wider range, but apparently we're out of that range a little bit, some of us.
Have there been any previous developments and a percentage of trees replanted to the trees that have been removed for the infrastructure? Is there a standard of replanting trees that have been removed for infrastructure?
in the code.
Yeah. In PUDs
tree
or in the
ordinance.
tree ordinance. The tree ordinance is 1752-220. And it does talk about trees removed for construction specifically.
Because planting some trees along the roads that they make isn't really a number of, you know,
There we go. Construct.
you can do 4 at 4 corners and call it, well, we put some down.
And then it talks about in accordance with F9, so you have to go down to F9. I don't think that's the right reference. For development, remove trees shall comply with the following. So,
One basis for a tree that's more than 6 inches DBA. That's all right.
mhm. But it does exclude, let's see, well, that's,
Looking for guidance. Oh, okay. Authority to impose conditions.
Do you have enough to make a wording?
would you like, we can give that some thought when, and if you want, we can bring something back when we come back with a final order.
This is your
Oh,
Okay, I would like to come back to that with some more information, yes.
Okay.
that'd be really helpful.
Yeah.
And the phrasing of a one-to-one replacement of trees that were torn down over a certain girth makes sense.
Mhm.
To me, that seems like a good way to answer your.
Yeah.
Replacing with the appropriate species.
Right, we could make another condition of that.
And it benefits stormwater retention and do so, like it for that reason.
Yeah, we'll take a look at it because, of course, now we're going to be adding a lot of infrastructure in there, which means that number of trees will be pushed into a smaller amount of area. So one-to-one may be a little too much in
Not
that case, but
appropriate.
we'll
Right.
take a look at what seems like a reasonable number.
Understandable.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, and in keeping with the character of that neighborhood as well, I think.
so only attempting impacts caused by the
Go ahead.
Could you also maybe help us with some language for the exterior lighting? So there,
We do have a lighting ordinance, and that is, I think, in the same section, not in PUDs, but, and that does require no glare cast into the city streets or on adjoining properties, and that it be and that the lighting should be directed downward. So that may address most of your concern.
yes, it would, thank you.
Are all the roads going to be paved?
Yes.
Bard Road also?
Adjacent to the subdivision.
Okay.
Yeah, in fact, let's see, yeah, and there will be some improvements at that intersection of Bard and Coast.
Okay.
That's where it
Gary? Steve? Are we good to go, or do you have more?
I guess my other thing is just the traffic study. I'm not quite sure where we ended up with that.
I wasn't clear on what you were proposing as a condition.
Just to, instead of looking at the usual standard traffic study timing, which is, I think, Monday through Friday morning and evening traffic back and forth to work, I don't know that that applies blankedly to Lincoln City. So I would just rather that the traffic study actually study the traffic patterns that we have now, which I think are, we have more traffic on the weekends, on holidays, Friday nights, and Sunday morning at 11 o'clock.
Sort of agree. I think the firm that did the traffic study not aware of the community that they were actually. I think maybe they didn't describe the methodology.
I'm a little unclear on the logic of a traffic study, given where we are in the process. What could we, in the nature of a traffic study, what could we propose as a condition
I'm not sure there's anything.
on the project itself?
I think we sort of addressed part of that by making construction on weekends and holidays for any kind of a traffic problem, which I think Commissioner Hinton was talking about on weekends.
Yeah, for the construction part of it.
Maybe I could interject a little bit. Having just sort of, reached the end of our transportation system plan project, and we've done a lot of talking about highest hour traffic studies, and we've concluded citywide, typically, that we would want to stay away from the peak periods because they would require such a large expanse of infrastructure that normally wouldn't be used the rest of the time. So, in fact, instead of going with the 30th highest hour, which has been a sort of a conventional way of doing traffic studies, we have gone to a peak hour on the weekdays. So, because we always have to find that balance between a reasonable sized street and accommodating traffic. If you get the streets too large in order to meet that peak period, then the rest of the time when it's not congested, cars tend to go faster, take those corners faster and that kind of thing. So it's really a balancing act.
We need to stagger checkout times.
Yeah, maybe we do. Maybe they could do that make that a condition.
Yeah, when the population increases about 30,000 on some weekends, it's hard to make a traffic study on that.
Capacity. Population.
I could see Coast
That's always
having
the question. That's always the problem with the traffic studies.
Dune and Coast having a 4-lane road going down it.
So what we've done with the TSP is try to pick a peak normal rather than a peak holiday and weekend, and that's why they've taken this approach.
With I know we talked about it a couple of times, with the 1-story, 2-story, the 5.5 or 5 foot and 7.5 feet setbacks, is that still going to apply to this PUD?
Yes, this PUD doesn't have a special regulating plan that varies those setbacks, so the setbacks would be usual, for our code.
Okay.
Yep.
And house square footage to lot size,
That is, I believe it's 45% in the RM zone,
It still would apply also?
and so that's the same. Yeah, they are not asking to vary that.
You're okay? Do we want to let this thing go forward with those conditions?
I can make a motion. Make a motion to approve Olivia Beach Phase 3 upon the conditions that staff has provided and also on conditions that we have suggested here. That includes, I think, the staff will bring back
Final recommended.
that final written order.
I second that motion.
Do we need a roll call for
May
that?
may I just ask, okay, so the two conditions are no construction on legal holidays, Saturdays and Sundays, and the second one is native trees using species in adjoining open space and currently on site at a ratio to be determined by staff.
Correct.
And then just reassert or remind them, I guess, of the exterior lighting.
We can add that in.
We have a motion and a second.
Okay. Griffiths,
Yes.
Hoagland,
Yes.
Hinton,
Yes?
Cunningham,
Yes.
Yes.
and Robinson.
Yes. This is a tentative oral decision. Staff will return with findings and a final order for adoption at the next regular meeting on Tuesday, July the 7th. So that just declares deliberations closed on that matter. Since the deliberations and discussions are closed, I wanted to make one remark. I really like your development, and I hope you do more in this city. Thank you.
I have one comment. May I have?
Please.
Okay. Aaron, is that you? There you are. Hi. I just wanted to compliment you and your neighbor, Ms. Johnson, on your collaborative work on putting together your agreement. That was really nice. Very, very nice. I appreciated reading it. Thank you.
All right. Old business, none scheduled. New business, none scheduled. Reports and comments. Sir?
I have none.
City Attorney?
Good communication. She's a sweetheart.
Oh, dear. Planning Commissioners?
Upcoming in the future. We'll plan in there. Plan is kind of out the window now, following.
No, that plan is still in place, completely in place. It needs to be amended to reflect the fact that the former owner sold some property for expansion of the golf course. But beyond that, since the plan was approved in 1998, what we want to do is look at the existing plan and see what changes might be appropriate. And that would involve basically the process that you've just gone through, because it's a planned unit development, so there would be public hearings before the Planning Commission on the any amendments that might be appropriate to the existing plan. So,
Well, since we got
we're starting to look at it very much so, yeah.
forecasted out,
No.
it's going to be 1 year, 2 years?
I expect it to be within the coming year. Because we want to decide what to do with it. One thing we're doing is looking at the piece, the piece that's developed now with some dwellings is Maplewood, and immediately north of that is another area called Fernwood, in which the roads were roughed in, the utilities, conduits were run, and that sort of thing. We're looking at selling that now, putting together a package to sell that to a developer, or to one or more developers.
Does that break with the plan we have?
That is 100% consistent with the existing plan. And it was approved for, I forget how many units it was initially approved for in that area with the layout that it has now. The former owner recognized that it probably was approved for too many units, and when he actually subdivided it, he cut back the number of units. I think the total number there is 60 in the first phase of Fernwood, and that's what we're talking about, getting ready to sell off. Again, consistent with the existing plan.
On that?
Pardon me?
Negotiations?
No, we're in the process of preparing either a request for proposals or a request for qualifications to do that. We're in the process of drafting up the terms of that right now, and the city council will have a decision on what to do with that. I know the city manager wants to proceed to the council with this, with these materials probably in July.
Disposition of city property typically follows the statute's requirement to have a public hearing where you advertise the terms of the sale. Typically, it's preceded with a request for proposal, as Richard referenced, and get proposals, and then we select the one we want. We have the public hearing process. Run it through the process. It's approved. Then we dispose of the property. So, advertising that sale.
Effective.
No, I think what we're proposing to do is to take and this is speculating, but right now we have an approved plan for Fernwood. And so basically Fernwood has some things that need to be done, some infrastructure needs to be completed, the asphalt needs to be put down, and maybe the drainage improvements need to be finished, and certain things need to be finished. I think there's some utilities that aren't in that should be in. And then the property is essentially ready for development in accordance with the approved plan. So I think the proposal would be, here's what we have. Anyone interested in completing this development, give us your terms. We select the one we want, and then they build it in accordance with the approved plans. So they don't, if they wanted to come in and propose a different plan, I suppose they can do that as well.
Yeah. What we have for the villages of Cascade Head is there's a preliminary master plan for the entire development. Then each of the so-called villages has should have a refined preliminary master plan. The only one that's actually in place is for what's called Rock Creek Village, which is the southern part of the development. Then within Rock Creek Village, which has, again, the refined preliminary master plan, there are individual, what they call blocks, which is not like a city block, it's just a tract of land. Each of those, before they can be developed, has to have a final master plan adopted. Maplewood has had one, and Fernwood has had a final master plan adopted, again, approved by the Planning Commission. If it becomes desirable to change the Fernwood final master plan, they would have to do an amendment, and that would come back again to the Planning Commission. Any of the other blocks within Rock Creek Village would have to come in for a final master plan approval, and each of those final master plans should be consistent with the approved refined preliminary master plan for Rock Creek Village, as well as with the preliminary master plan for the entire development. I expect that, as I said, within a year we'll be proposing some changes to the final, or to the preliminary master plan for Rock Creek Village, or for the, changes to the preliminary master plan for the villages at Cascade Head as a whole, and probably some changes to the refined preliminary master plan for Rock Creek Village. Again, that would come through the Planning Commission for hearings and approval through the same process we just went through with Olivia Beach.
Thank you for your input.
Chair? First?
No, you spoke up.
I was just going to comment on the traffic signal changes. Those are actually working really well, the flashing yellow turn lights. It's definitely eliminating a lot of light changes to stop traffic. I've really noticed a difference.
Yeah, it's eliminating a lot of people just having to sit there and wait for a green light, probably helping with air pollution and who knows what else. So.
I just wanted to read this. In the News Times, June 9th, there was an article titled, "Decision on Lincoln City Housing Project Postponed." And I'd just like to make a correction to what they stated. The Planning Commission votes by voice vote or roll call only, and the paper stated otherwise.
Mr. Chair. In regards to traffic lights, is that something that the Planning Commission has authority over?
Well,
I keep getting people asking me for traffic signals at certain places, and I don't know what to tell them.
Highway 101 the Oregon Department of Transportation has authority over that, pretty much exclusive authority. So they would be the people to approach for it. There will be a traffic light at South 32nd as a result of the GAP project.
We only have traffic lights on Highway 101.
That's right. Here's something that we might mention, though, that the transportation system plan is drawing to a close. We've have a draft plan that will be going to the Project Advisory Committee. Kate, do you remember what our meeting date is on that? Or we don't have one yet? We don't have one yet.
No.
Okay. But probably will be in the coming month. And then the plan, we will hold a joint Planning Commission City Council workshop on the draft plan. So you'll all have an opportunity to comment on traffic lights and intersections and a lot of crosswalks and a lot of other things. And then after following that, we'll have a public event. So, and then it'll go into hearings for adoption. So you'll have another crack at it.
Okay. How detailed is that? For instance, if I wanted to propose a stop sign at an intersection, how do you go about doing it?
Yeah, that probably, the transportation system plan probably doesn't get to that level, and that's more of a consideration for the public engineer, or the city engineer. So I would go to the Public Works Department to talk to them about that. The plan might have some guidance generally about where you put stop signs. I don't recall.
Any other comments? All right, we are at public comments on non-agenda items not involving a public hearing. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Hearing none. Future agenda items, and the next meeting is scheduled for July 7th, 2015.
What you've got is a hearing on rezoning Olivia Beach, the same area we discussed tonight.
The VR zone.
into the VR zone,
Mhm.
as well as they just amended their application to add a couple of adjacent properties as well. And then you got a conditional use permit hearing on the proposed Taco Bell up by the Pig and Pancake. And that's a conditional use because it has a drive-through.
Oh, yes.
Oh, and the final order on tonight's hearing.
Well, I guess we're adjourned.
Dutch Brothers is about ready.